Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi, the two greatest riders of the MotoGP era. Two riders that have changed the game in terms of riding style in the modern day. In a recent interview with DAZN, Marc Marquez said growing up Valentino Rossi was one of his idols and will always respect Rossi for the things that he learned from watching the Italian. The relationship started with Marc meeting Valentino back in 2008. The two would race against each other for the first time in 2013, and in Marquez's very first MotoGP race, he would battle Rossi for second place, on which the Italian would come out on top. Rossi congratulated Marquez after the rookie took his first win at the next round in Texas, doffing his cap as a mark of respect. They would battle around Laguna Seca, and Marquez would put a move on Rossi at the corkscrew similar to the one that Rossi done to Casey Stoner in 2008. The respect grew, and into 2014 the pair would have several battles over the season for victory as Marquez took his second MotoGP world title in a row. As we entered 2015, things started to change. The relationship took a different turn. Argentina happened, DAZN happened, Phillip Island happened, and yes, Sepang happened. Let's take a closer look at how all this unfolded. As we have mentioned, 2015 happened. The relationship started to fall apart after incidents in Argentina and DAZN. Then fast forward a few months to October. Marc Marquez produces one of the best last laps in MotoGP history to win the Australian Grand Prix at Phillip Island. Valentino Rossi finishes 4th and loses more points to title rival Jorge Lorenzo, who finishes 2nd. This is where everything changes. Rossi accuses Marquez of deliberately holding him up throughout the race and that Marquez was protecting Lorenzo, which really doesn't make much sense as Marc went on to beat Lorenzo in the race and took points away from him. But we arrive to Malaysia. Thursday's press conference. Valentino Rossi is sitting alongside Marc Marquez on the stage and things start to turn a bit personal. To the world's media, Rossi accuses Marquez of protecting Lorenzo so that he can win the title, and that Marc was doing everything in his power to stop Valentino from winning his 10th world title. And well, you know where this one's going. Marquez clearly stated in the press conference he wasn't protecting Lorenzo at all. What happened next is something that all MotoGP fans around the world will never forget. I'm not going to start any arguments by saying who is at fault and who is right and who is wrong. 2015 is in the past. Fast forward to 2016 and the divide in the MotoGP fan base is clear. Marquez and Rossi haven't spoken to each other since the incident in Sepang. But the tragic event of Louis Salam's death at the 2016 Catalan Grand Prix brought the MotoGP world closer. Marquez and Rossi battled brilliantly around the circuit to Barcelona, and after Rossi took victory in Parc Ferme, he walked over to Marc and the two shook hands. It showed respect. It was what the whole MotoGP world needed after the terrible events earlier in that weekend. The story isn't done yet though. Argentina 2018. Marc Marquez's worst race in MotoGP. He collided with Valentino Rossi after riding through the pack at the last corner at Termas and knocked the Italian off. It was pure chaos. Rossi accused Marquez of ruining the sport, and once again the two fan bases went crazy to each other on social media, which was quite sad and distasteful when looking back on it. It's something that I wish would never happen again to MotoGP, especially on social media. Later down the line, Marquez offered his hand in apology to Rossi at a press conference at Misano, but Rossi refused. The story almost went full circle, as in Sepang in 2018, we were set for a grandstand finish between Rossi and Marquez as the two battled for the victory with just 3 laps to go in Malaysia. But we were denied that. Rossi lost the front at turn 1 and handed Marquez the victory. Ironically, this was the last time that Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi would battle for victory together. However, at Termas in 2019, hold up, what is it with these two and Argentina? Everything seems to happen here. Anyway, back to the story. Marquez took victory in a dominating fashion and Rossi finished second. Before the podium, Valentino offered his hand to Marc and congratulated him on his victory. This was the first public reconciliation between the two since that incident a year previously at Argentina. The podium at Termas in 2019 was the last time that Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi would share a podium together in MotoGP. And to be honest, this is where the story kind of ends. There was that little spat in qualifying at Misano later in the year in 2019, but that was really it. The two wouldn't really meet on track again, and the relationship doesn't exist on a personal level. They would barely acknowledge each other, but they would keep it respectful and professional when doing press conferences together. Whatever side you're on, whether it's Rossi or Marquez, it doesn't matter. Whatever narrative you think is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. The big story and takeaway from this is that we have to appreciate that we've been lucky to witness two of the greatest talents in MotoGP history, and indeed motorcycling history, have been on track at the same time together. Rossi retired at the end of 2021, Marquez is currently still racing in MotoGP. In years to come, they won't be there anymore, and we'll all look back and think how good it was to have the two greatest riders of their generations battling against each other. This is something that we all should appreciate.